Sean Hillis is a good. Well, we're being recorded now. No pressure. We've got the very handsome, very charismatic, very funny, very relatable Sean Hillis tonight. So without further ado, I won't take up any more of his time. Sean, tell us how you get emotionally sober or not.
Thanks so much, Sam. I spent when you asked me last week, I spent a little bit of time, not too much, trying to figure out why did you ask me? And and I asked Tom. I said, I barely know Sam. Why did you pitch me so hard to him? He says, I didn't pitch him. He said, I believe Sam has an intuitive. He intuitively picks his speakers, and I just went with it. So it's just like most things that I tried to stop trying to figure it out and just accept that I'm here and to hopefully say something that can help somebody. I know that I'll be helped. So my name's Sean Hillis. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September the 8th of 2004. I have a home group. And another reason I was so nervous to come to this meeting is because I've heard great things about it over the year, but I've never attended because it's during my home group. My home group meets 8:00 in New Orleans. It's called the Three Legacies meeting. And so you're all very welcome if you're not on this Zoom call and you're in New Orleans to come check us out. We'd love to have you. I have a sponsor, and I sponsor men. September the 8th, 2004. That was a very, it was a very, very amazing day. The day before, I should say, was an extremely amazing day. I woke up with the as hopeless as I had ever been, with the absolute certainty that was the day I was going to end my life. And through a strange series of events, a lot of God, that evening, I went to bed with the softest pillow and more hope than I could ever have dreamed. And the obsession to drink was totally removed from me that day. And I know right then and there that God was on my side, and that God did care about me, and that this was my way out. This was the thing that I'd always hoped, that there was a way out. And so I'm extremely grateful for that day. That was the day after Labor Day 2004. And I may talk about that a little bit that day, how I ended up here. Just to tell you a little bit about me. I grew up with, my parents split up at a very young age. My mom had me at 18. My dad, he moved away in the state and then out of state when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And, my mom did a very good job of raising me. And she taught me a lot of really good morals and values, and I knew right from wrong. And it took me a long time to kind of convince her that she had really no play in why I became alcoholic and why I did some of the things I did. And I continue to praise her for teaching me good morals and values, and I'm really grateful for that. I know a lot of people who make it to these rooms had it a lot less fortunate of a childhood than I did. And, I got pretty much everything that I needed and a lot of what I wanted. And, but I found myself, before alcohol was even a big part of my life, pulling geographicals. I moved in the middle of my junior year of high school. I moved out to Arizona to live with my father, who was a pretty much complete stranger to me, because I just thought the grass was greener on the other side. I thought that, I could start over fresh with school, get some new friends. And, I just thought things would be better over there. I thought it was grander over there. And I continued to pull geographicals for the next 10 years, and until I got sober. I always, when I got in a little bit of trouble or just got uncomfortable, I moved. That's what I did. I always thought that I could start fresh. And, I always thought the problem was, the current place I was in, or the just situational, and that if I just moved, it was like a start over card. And I did not know until I came into AA and really started working on myself that the problem was me. Um, you know, um, I suffered a lot of consequences due to my drinking in college. I played college golf, and I ended up getting kicked off of a few college golf teams, and because of alcohol and because of outside issues. And I always just blamed it on life dealt me a shitty hand, and I just had really bad luck. And if you were me, you would do that too. And I never really took responsibility. You know, Fast forward a little bit. I was visiting my father in Arizona. I was in 2003. I just turned 24, and I remember I was leaving Arizona, going back to New Orleans, and I was like, man, I wish I could just win the lottery and move to Arizona. Everything would be great there. My life would be perfect. And then I thought, dude, you don't have to win the lottery. All you have to do is, if you want to be decent about it, is go tell your employer tomorrow that you're putting your 2 weeks in and that you're moving to Arizona onto bigger and better things. And so that's what I did. And I convinced everybody that I was moving out there to pursue golf professionally. But deep down, I knew that I wasn't willing to put in the work that it took to be successful at that. And deep down, I knew that I was really leaving New Orleans because I thought that I would die if I stayed there. And I thought that I could start over and everything would be great in Arizona. So I did that. And that was September 2003. That year, I did everything that I thought that would make me happy and complete. Everything that I thought that would bring me joy, happiness, peace, all that stuff happened. And it was the absolute worst year of my life. I found myself jeopardizing morals and values, going to some pretty low spots. And, that day after Labor Day, I was so close to ending my life. And I remember sitting there on this futon, and I couldn't decide whether I was going to wear flip-flops or put on socks and tennis shoes to go in my life. And I remember just such a depressive state. I remember I was just looking back at the Birkenstocks, and I remember I laid back and I was just like, God, what a loser. You're going to end your life and you can't decide what shoes to wear. That's when God intervened. Up until this point, I always thought that, yeah, I believed in God. I was raised Catholic. I believed in God. I never believed that if I stayed home on a Sunday watching cartoons and didn't go to church, that God was going to be mad at me. I didn't believe that crap that they tried telling me, that I had to go to church. But I also believed that God only cared in decent people who are doing decent things, and people who are really like paying attention to him and worship him. And I wasn't that kid. And I wasn't necessarily bad growing up, but I definitely was very mischievous. Now, growing up playing golf, I was kind of a preppy kid, and I got away with a lot of stuff because I was a preppy kind of golfer, and that was before Tiger Woods really hit the scene, and so golf wasn't cool. I got made fun of playing golf in high school. It got cool when I was in college, but so I got away with a lot of stuff because of that. But I'll never forget that day. When I was about to end it all, I remembered a friend who was sober, and I reached out to him, and I remember he told me over the phone. He said everything's going to be okay. And the best way for me to describe that is that, you see in movies where like the guy's like running on the frozen pond or the ice, and he falls through and he's trapped under the ice, and then all of a sudden he gets rescued. the fire department shows up, they wrap that warm thermal blanket around them. I'm crying on the phone, telling my friend how I'm about to kill myself and I don't know what to do. And he tells me, Sean, everything's going to be okay. And all of a sudden I had that warmth feeling around me. He took me to an AA meeting later that afternoon. And I ended up staying for the 4 o'clock. They had one at 6, they had one at 8, they had one at 11 p.m. And I stayed for all of them. And I went home that night. And like I said, like I told y'all earlier, I felt like, hey, this was the answer. My obsession to drink it was like turning off the light switch. God's gracious gift to me, took it away. It's never come back. Some say it's a blessing. Sometimes it's been a curse. I know it's God's gracious gift to me, but at times because I don't fight that drink. I've gotten incredibly lazy in AA because of it. But I look back on that day, and as much as I wanted to kind of escape things and whatever, I could not deny that that whole day, the way things transpired, that God was really on my side and was working in my life. I knew none of that stuff that happened that I could create myself, and so I knew that there was a something greater than me working in my life, and that wanted me to succeed. That's the good news. The bad news is, or good news, however you want to put it, is I found myself more suicidal at like 9 or 10 weeks of going to 3 meetings a day, not wanting to drink, not thinking about drinking. And it's because, I failed to perfect in the large on that spiritual, that spiritual experience I had that day. And, although I was somewhat grateful of God taking away the obsession, I wanted him to like strike me white as snow. I wanted him to make me perfect. I wanted all kinds of good shit to happen to me, but I didn't want to do anything. And it got really dark and lonely, and I was surrounded by a fellowship of people who knew exactly what I was going through, and yet I was really, really alone and scared and felt hopeless. And I can tell you guys this and you'll understand, but if I tell this to like my parents or to like normal people, they'll like freak out. But I had this guy who was at every noon and 6 meeting at the North Scottsdale Fellowship Club that I went to for AA, and he always sat at this newcomers table and he was helping people. And he's one of the first people I met in AA. And I remember he came up to me one day, and 10 weeks sober, and this guy loved me enough to tell me the truth. And this guy told me that in prayer meditation that morning that God had spoken to him about me. And I was like, I stopped crying. I looked up and just kind of it's like, oh, really? What did he say? And he said, Sean, he said, here's what you need to do. You need to go to Home Depot and you need to go buy about 10 or 12 feet of rope. Just go hang yourself. I was like, what? That's bullshit, Wade. He didn't say that. And he goes, no, man. He goes, here you are. You're in AA with all of us, but you're still cutting corners. You're lying. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you're miserable. Why put yourself through all this pain? Why do all this stuff? He goes, man, just take the easy way out. Just go hang yourself. Just end it all. He goes, or you can stop effing around. You can get honest, and you can be happy, joyous, and free like me, and I'll be, everybody else you see here. And I left cursing that guy, but I went home crying, and I knew that guy was right, and I knew that I couldn't cut corners, because see, I wanted the result without doing any of the work. So there's 2 precepts that talks about how it works. If you want what we have, and I wanted what y'all had, but I didn't want to do shit. And if you're willing to go to any lengths to get it, that's where I failed. Then you're ready to take certain steps. It took that guy loving me enough to tell me the truth, to tell me that, to really wake me up and let me hear it. And I humbly went to that guy the next day and begged him to be my sponsor. And I did everything that he asked of me. And, things were great for the next year. I was on this pink cloud, and he told me to start making myself available to help people right then and there. And or actually, after I did a fifth step with him, like 2 or 3 weeks later, he told me that I was ready and that I had a lot more to offer than I thought. And I started making myself available to help people. And I found myself driving a lot of people to meetings. And in particular, there's one Indian guy who getting beat up and like kind of hit by cars. I remember me and my buddy, we were the only ones that didn't mind like picking him up all bloody and gross and stuff and bringing him to the emergency room. And my first year of sobriety probably did that 8 or 9 times, brought this guy to the ER. And that's when I really, learned how to love somebody who wasn't even capable of loving himself. And I knew early on too that hey, all these second chances I've had, that the reason I'm sober and the reason I didn't end my life, the reason I didn't die an alcoholic death is because, I can help people. That, God chose me. I'm one of God's warriors. And I believe every single person that steps in AA is one of God's warriors too. And so not only do I have the ability, but I have almost a duty to my higher power to serve Him and the people about me. And so I try to do that the best of my ability, emotional sobriety, I've been sober almost 17 years. I've fallen short numerous times, and I'm going to go into some of it in detail and tell you guys a little bit more about some of the depressive depths that I've fallen into. I've never really been kind of in a low spot, especially in sobriety, but a few times it happened pretty hard, and it was because I was trying to I totally shunned God out. And anyways, 18 months sober, I'm living my best life. I'm in Arizona. Katrina just happened in New Orleans, devastated and rocked my community and my family here in New Orleans. But I'm in Scottsdale. I got a job bartending. I'm golfing every day. I'm sober. Everything's great. But God was directing me back to New Orleans. And you know what? I did not want to go. And, I asked God three different times and I prayed for 3 different times for 3 days and asked Him to make it crystal clear if that's what I needed to do. And on the 3rd time of Him making it absolutely crystal clear that was my path, I decided that I was gonna do it. And so I did. I came back to New Orleans, and I was a little scared, but I knew that AA was here.
Hey, Sean, you accidentally muted yourself. You got to rewind 10 seconds and start back over.
Oh, I'm on.
You're a little scared to go back. You're a little scared to go back to New Orleans, and then so we're just.
All right. I go back to New Orleans, and I had somebody that really helped me out there. I didn't know much about AA tapes at this time, and I met a woman in AA at a meeting I came to about a month before I moved back, and she gave me about 6 AA cassettes. And said, "Hey, why don't you listen to these on the drive?" And so I did, and so that made it really easy for the drive. I made some calls, and I had a sponsor before I got back here. I knew somebody who knew somebody that was sober, and I asked this guy to be my sponsor. And I get to New Orleans, and I start doing the deal. And I had a guy who that I asked to sponsor me that just started taking me to a bunch of service things. And he'd be like, "Hey, what do you got going on this weekend?" I'll be like, "Hey, not much." He said, "All right, well, I'm picking you up at 5 o'clock after work. Pack a bag, toothbrush. We're going to the AA archive convention." And I really didn't want to go, but I did, and I met a lot of you cool people. But I was the youngest by far there. But you know, I met. I realized that AA was bigger and than the little AA bubble I had been in, and so my community and my fellowship and my sobriety was expanding and growing. And I had the pleasure of going to the first Fellowship of the Spirit conference. South in Lafayette, and you know, that's where I met my current sponsor, and that was that was a beautiful thing to be a grow into. You know, one of the things that I had that I wanted to share with you guys, you know, I hosted a speaker at a Fellowship of the Spirit South conference, and I actually mentioned when I was introducing him my current sponsor, and when he got up there to share, he turned and said, "What do you mean current sponsor? It's not your current sponsor, it's your sponsor." And this guy made me feel real little, right? And then I was thinking, oh, maybe it's just in my head. And then afterwards, you know, somebody came up to me and said, "Man, I can't believe that guy called you out like that." And you know, I found myself, I went on to totally gossip and just mother F this guy for the next few years. And anytime this guy's name came up, you know, I would tell him how what a shitty thing he did to me, and how that I found myself, you know, putting this guy on this spiritual pedestal that as a circuit speaker, you should never talk to somebody like that. And you know, years later, I was chairing our state convention here in Louisiana, and we chose that guy to be the Saturday night speaker. And I was able to make amends to him about 10 minutes before he went on that Saturday night. And speak. And you know what? For about 3 years, it really bothered me, and I was full of fear to call this guy, you know, because I've been sober a couple of years at this point, and it really bothered me, and I was ashamed to call him and tell somebody in sobriety that I had been like just trashing his name and telling people, you know, how shitty I thought he was. But you know what? I had the opportunity to look him in the eye and to tell him how wrong I was. And you know what? He didn't even remember that time before. And, you know, he may or may not have even said that, you know, I don't think I would have said something like that. But you know what? I didn't argue with him. I just said, well, you know what? I know what I did was wrong. And you know what? I'm really sorry. And God willing, it will never happen again. And you know what? I was free. I was free of it. And, you know, a lot of people that I specifically knew that I talked to that guy about, you know, I made amends to them, and I told them that I was wrong, and that wasn't right. Around this time, you know, I had married when I was in New Orleans, and you know, that marriage, that we were married for about two and a half years, and you know what I found out? I found out that we did this pre-Cana thing. And it's a Catholic thing. It's like preparation for marriage you do with a priest. The guy who was going to marry us, some of you know, Father Des Crotty. He was a good friend of mine in AA and here in New Orleans, and he was going to marry us. And he ended up passing that Mardi Gras, that day after Mardi Gras, the year before we got married. And so he was a very special person to me, and to some of my sponsor lineage. But I'd started the pre-Cana process with him, but then finished it with the guy who was going to marry us. And I remember in this pre-Cana, they're asking all these questions. And I remember my fiance at the time, a lot of her answers were not in line with what I was looking for and stuff too. And you know what? I kind of just neglected a lot of what was going on there. I just turned a blind eye. I guess I was maybe hopeful that things would change and that things would turn or whatever, but she didn't. She wasn't meeting my expectations and my sex ideal. You know, if things were on a line, you know, our beliefs and our, you know, things that we wanted to do and raising kids and stuff were different, and I didn't address them. We ended up getting to it was suggested to us by this couple that was guiding us through there that we should maybe not get married or postpone the wedding. And I said, you know what, that seems like a really good idea. We should postpone this wedding because we got some issues that we should be working on before we move forward. And she hit me with, we're not postponing the wedding. Either we're getting married or we're breaking up. And it's a month before the wedding. So much money and emotions and time had been invested. And you know what? I went through with the wedding, even though I knew it wasn't the right move. And by me not having the courage to really to really trust God in that moment and to really do the right thing, I got really scared, and I just turned a blind eye, and I realized that set us up. Starting with an ultimatum like that she gave me is not probably the best way for eternal bliss, right? And through that marriage, I pointed the finger at her a lot, and I thought that she was wrong in a lot of situations. But ultimately, when we broke up, I looked back at it. I said, "Hey, you set the ball rolling here, dude. You knew this wasn't the right thing, and you were too scared to face everybody and say, hey, this isn't right." And so by me not having the courage to do what was at the time the right thing, I set the ball rolling and set up for so many people to be hurt along the lines because I lacked fear and because I had so much fear and I lacked courage and strength, which I've never had, that I've always gotten from God. And because I didn't turn to God in those situations and really trust in Him, I allowed years of other people to be hurt as well. And you know what? I take responsibility for that now. And I know that just some little things that I do or don't do can really, 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 hurt a lot of people. I'm embarrassed to say, and I haven't told a lot of people this other than my sponsor and people really close to me, that I had an affair, with that first wife, and this was a work colleague that lived in Florida, and I was like, hey, I'm in Florida. She's in a different town in Florida. We're here for work. No one will ever know. No one will ever get hurt. And it went on for a few months. And then I found one time she came to New Orleans, and I was like, wait, this isn't sitting right with me, man. I'm not happy in my marriage, but you know what? This is against my morals and values. This isn't who I am. This is not, I need to put my foot down and stop this. And so I did. And I told this woman that, hey, I'm really sorry for participating in this, but I can't continue to do this. My marriage is not really good right now. But you know what? I'm going to try to do the best that I can to salvage it. But even if it's not salvageable, I'm going to still try to do the right thing and try to live by the morals and values that I believe. Those morals and values that my mom taught me, right from wrong. I knew what I was doing was wrong. For years, I wasn't happy in that marriage. And, she did for me what I couldn't do for myself. She ended up leaving me. And for about a week or two, I was like, I fell into this depressive hole like I had never been in, like not even, and I was just like, oh my God, please come back. I can't live without you. And then someone pointed out to me, it's like, Sean, you weren't even happy in this marriage, dude. And I was like, wow, you're right. They're like, you just didn't have the courage to do. So she did it for y'all, she didn't leave you. She escaped. And, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And you know what? I remember it was so plain as day. It was a Sunday, and this was about maybe a week after she had wrote me a letter that she was gone. And I remember I hadn't left my house in a week. I smelled terrible, all this stuff. And I remember I just said a prayer. I said, God, I said, I am willing to give it all to you. I'm ready to turn it all over to you. And I'm done. I'm done hurting people. You know, I'm done doing all this stuff. And I slept so good that night. I woke up the next day and I was like, wow, this is the first day of the rest of my life. You know, I had an extra pep in my step, you know, and it wasn't arrogance. I wasn't cocky. It was like I knew that God had my back. I knew that God had my back, man. And I knew that I was going to be okay. And my buddy, one of my sponsee brothers, Mark, he would always tell me, he said, dude, you've always been okay, Sean. You know, self tries to tell you you're not okay, but you're okay. You were okay then, you're okay now, and you'll be okay tomorrow. And I drive to work that Monday morning, walk in my office, kid y'all not. I sit down at my desk, kick back, I'm ready to, my phone rings. I pick it up. It was the husband of the woman that I had an affair with in Florida that I broke things off with 6 months earlier. And apparently he found out when I ended things with her. She was cool with me, but she, you know, her life was not cool. She went into a depressive state. She ended up in a psych ward. She was suicidal. She came clean and told her husband everything. And 6 months later, this guy calls me and I said, hey, you called my work line. Can I call you back from my mobile in about a minute or two? And he hung up. I called my sponsor, Tom. He didn't answer. I called my best friend, Billy. He didn't answer. I hit my knees and I said, God, I know I just turned this shit over to you like 10 hours ago. And I said, I'm all in. And I didn't realize that you were going to hit me this quick. And so I trusted the process. I called this guy. And we had a nice long talk for about 2.5 hours. And I was honest with him and I told him everything. And I answered all his questions. Well, she told him everything. And exactly what I told him was exactly what she told him. So, and you know what this guy said? He was not happy about the situation. But he did give me props. And he didn't congratulate me, but he said, hey, man, I give you a lot of credit for knowing that what you were doing is wrong and for ending this. He goes, but let me tell you how it's affected me and my family. And this guy told me exactly the ripple effect, which went into motion 6 months, 9 months earlier. And all this time, I thought that there was no way that two people meeting in a third city they didn't live in that anything bad could happen out of this. And this guy told me exactly how it affected his family, his kids, him, her. And I realized right then and there, you know, that was all that was me being selfish. It was me being insecure. It was me not asking God for help. That was Sean left to his own devices. And I vowed that day never to make that mistake again. And I'm really, 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 really conscious now of the things I do, and how, you know, how when we make amends, how we can put blessings and put good vibes and restore people's faith in humanity, how that has a ripple effect. So does the actions that I take, the negative actions, the things that I say, the things that I do, how that can go and really, really cause harm. And man, I don't know how that would have went if he would have called me while me and my wife were still together. if he would have called me 2 days earlier before I really asked God for help. But I know that there's no mistakes and that it happened exactly when it needed to happen. And I learned exactly what I needed to learn. Right then and then, I vowed that I would never mess around with married people, even if I was single. And I've held true to that. God's tested me a lot. But one other thing I wanted to really share about too is this has been a recurring theme in my sobriety. My father, uh, my father, I mean, not to sugarcoat it, he kind of abandoned me, and and I'm okay with it today. For a long time, I wasn't, and I kept thinking that he needed to change. He needed to do certain things right, and today I look back on it as you know maybe he was doing the best thing that is the best of he was handling it the best way that he could. And for a long time, I drank at that man, and I blamed him for being an alcoholic. I moved out to live with him my junior year of high school, and was I really moving out there to because I needed a father figure in my life? No, you know, God blessed me with a man. But when I was 6, my mom, who was 24, started dating a guy who was 22, and he's been in my life for the last 36 years. And he treats me just like he does my half brother and sister, just like his very own. And he's a really good man. He's been very good to me, very patient with me over the years. So I had a father figure in my life. Looking back on it and being honest, I moved out there because my dad moved to a fucking kick-ass golf course that we were going to live on, have our own golf cart and everything, and I could move out there and meet new people and stuff. And so I moved out there because I was insecure and I didn't really know who I was. So I didn't even move out there to have a better relationship with my dad, but yet I told myself and convinced myself a long time that he was the reason that I drank, and that because he was an alcoholic, that's the reason that I became one. Um, you know, for a long time, even into sobriety, that poor guy didn't have a chance. My dad, you know, didn't matter what he said. I was always going to be angry at him, and I was always going to call him out on his shit. And, looking back on it, man, I was not a loving son. I really wasn't. You know what I was? I was a sober guy who had learned some things about myself and some lingo and knew how to to find character defects in people, especially myself. But man, did I just barrel down on him. I was so angry at this guy for things he wasn't even aware that he was doing. And finally, my sponsor Tom one time had to say, "Well, Sean, when he says these things, have you ever told him how it makes you feel?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Yet you've been angry at him for 2 years, and you've never told him that how that makes you feel." He says, "You don't have to lie to someone to be dishonest. That's a form of dishonesty." And so, you know what? I didn't talk to my dad for about a year because he did some really, really kind of crappy things, and he sided with an ex-girlfriend that I didn't even know when we broke up and stuff. And so, but then, I knew it was time to make things right with him, and and you know what it was? It wasn't even about making things right. I had so much hate towards this man, and it was affecting other areas of my life, and I knew that I needed to be free. And I asked him to meet me, and I was taking a work trip out to Kentucky, and asked him to fly out there. My dad's an airline pilot, and another reason that I was so mad at my dad is because he barely ever came to see me when I was little, and he was a airline pilot who could fly for free. And so I over against him and said and called him on it a lot too, which is not something that a loving son should do. Um, But I asked him to come meet me out there. And for those of you that know golf, I'd set up a tee time at Valhalla, a great golf course out there where some golf majors have been played and stuff. And figured, me and my dad hadn't really seen each other or talked in about a year and a half. That the one thing we always had in common was golf, and that I invited him out to come play golf with me. And I just wanted to see him. I missed him, and I wanted to talk to him about some things. And you know what? He told me, well, I mean, what am I going to do? I'm just going to drive 4 hours to come play golf. And, it just seems like a waste of time or whatever. Well, long story short, he didn't come. And so rather than get mad and angry, I called him afterwards, and I was honest with him. And I said, man, I really missed you today. It would have been great to see you. And it would have been awesome to play golf at this course. And you know what? I had some things that I wanted to talk to you about, Dad. And since you didn't come, I feel like right now is the time. And so I spent maybe about 45 minutes. And this is a person who my whole life that we would yell and we would argue and we would curse. And I never raised my voice once on the phone with this man. And I prefaced everything by telling him how sorry I was for not telling him how I felt, for not telling him what I needed out of this relationship. I never raised my voice. And I told him, I said, hey, look, I've been dating this girl for the last 9 months, or for the last like 6 months. And you know what? I think she's the one. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to ask her to marry me. We plan on having a family. And I said, the only way I would like to include you in this is if we can have a loving relationship, because what's worked, what we've been doing hasn't worked. And I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And I told him exactly. I said, look, and I believe my dad has alcoholic problems as an alcoholic. And I said, Dad, I said, I'm not giving you an ultimatum. I'm just being honest. I'm telling you how I feel about all this and what I'm not going to tolerate, and that I want to have a loving relationship with you. And if we can't have that, well, then I'd rather have no relationship. Because see, for a long time, people told me that, geez, your dad, you have to put up with this stuff. You have to do all this. And I was like, and I had some people, my sponsor and his wife, they told me, they said, no, that's a lot of bullshit. You don't have to put up with that abuse. You don't have to, you don't have to put up with those things. Because the truth of the matter is he helped bring me into this world, but he wasn't really a father to me, and I'm okay with that. But I invited him to that I was willing to help him in any way to get his shit straight and to help him, so that we could have a loving relationship. And and I tell you what, I've never felt more free than after I hung up the phone that day. And our relationship has been a lot better since. And you know what? It took me realizing and asking God for the strength to do the right thing, that I had to be, I don't want to say the adult, but I'm the one. My sponsor says, Sean, you're the one with the program. He doesn't know how to do certain things. He doesn't know spiritual principles. He doesn't know how to do these things. And he says, you need to take the lead here. You need to stop being angry and do what a loving son would do. And so ultimately now that's what I think about. What would a loving son do? And to be honest, our relationship has prospered, and it's gotten great. And he's told me, at times, he told me when my first daughter was born almost 5 years ago, I'm sorry for being such a terrible dad. And you're such a good dad to your girls and all this stuff. And I said, Dad, I forgave you a long time ago. It's time for you to forgive yourself. And I said, if you really want to, I said, you got a second chance, dude. I said, be the best you can to your granddaughters. Be present in their life. And, lately he's fallen short there, and I haven't been a loving son, and I've really let it bother me. I've let it affect my family. I really let it affect my wife and let her get worked up over it. And, and I've been trying to play God. rather than ask God for me to be loving, tolerant, to be patient, and just accept this man for what he is. I've been like trying to make him see things that the way that how they should be, you know. You know, he just drove to Houston he lives north of Atlanta, and they drove to Houston um, to go visit some other family about a month ago. And they drove within 30 minutes of my house. And they actually stayed in a hotel 30 minutes from my house. And they didn't come see their granddaughters. And I was like, it just blew my mind. You rarely ever get to see your grandkids, and you're not only are you driving 30 minutes from them, you're staying the night 30 minutes from them, and you're not going to come see your grandkids. And it just baffled me. And you know, my sponsor said, Sean, dude, you need to just accept things the way they are. You know, it's not your job to make him see it. He will never see it, maybe, you know? And so what would a loving son do? Would a loving son tell him how shitty he is for not coming to see his grandkids? No, but that's what I did for 3 weeks, you know, and I beat that guy up probably worse than I'd ever beaten him up. And so that's what I've been really, really fighting with lately. And it's like, man, that's not why I'm sober today. You know, I'm not sober to have hate towards anybody, especially this guy, you know, and, you know, that's not practice of patience, love, and tolerance. And you know what? Probably in the last week or so, probably 2 weeks, I've really, really been working on it, asking God to really help me with that. And you know, what would a loving son do? Because my he's not getting younger, you know. And for a long time, I wanted to punish him. Oh yeah, you're not going to come see your kids. Well then, we're not going to come see you. And Tom pointed out, he goes, dude, he goes, you really want to punish the guy? Is that, he goes, I know you, Sean. You're not that type. Why do you? And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not. And so, you know, that was something that I've really, really, really had to work hard on. And, you know, like all of us, you know, the people closest to me are the ones that let get to me the most, are the ones that you know, 99.99% of my resentments today are because the people closest to me, because really, I don't really care about the people that aren't in my circle, but the people that are closest to me, I'm resentful because they're not acting the way that I think they should. And what is that about playing God? You know, who the hell am I to think that I know what you should be doing, you know, or how you should be doing things, you know, and trying to control things. I mean, shit, I came to you guys because I can't control shit. And I still can't control shit. I need God to help me with all that stuff. One other thing that you know, I know, like that sponsor in Arizona, when he told me that I should go to Home Depot and buy that rope, he loved me enough to tell me the truth. I honestly believe that God intuitively told him to tell me exactly what he told me, because that's what it would take to wake me up. And I believe that only with God's help is how I receive these intuitive thoughts. Left to my own devices, I think of what's going to best serve Sean. It's as simple as that. And so I know that I need God's help. I've never been much into praying. I'm very ADD, and you know, the praying is kind of been tough for me. I usually find that when I am praying, saying prayers, I'm usually asking for me for stuff. So I don't really do that much of that anymore. I say some prayers or read some prayers, but you know, I've spent a lot more time meditating and just sitting quietly. For the longest time, I thought that I needed to get quiet and I needed to transcend to like the Andes Mountains or some like place on like a magic carpet ride, and you know, with the Dalai Lama, and you know, shave my head and go to whatever and go to this magical place to find God. And then explained to me, no, dude, just sit there quietly. And what was really important is when I was having trouble with that, you know, my sponsor Tom told me, he said, hey, you want to have a solid relationship with your higher power? I said, yeah, absolutely. He goes, how do you have a solid relationship with your wife? So, well, what do you mean? He said, you got to spend time with your wife, right? I said, yeah, absolutely. You got to talk to your wife. Yeah, of course. You got to listen to your wife. Yeah, absolutely. He was like, well, it's the same thing with your higher power. You know, you want to have a meaningful, loving, complete relationship with your higher power. You have to take the time out of your, what you think is such a busy life, busy schedule, to spend time with your higher power. You need to talk to your higher power. More important, you need to listen to your higher power. And he also told me, hey, meditation, prayer meditation, it's not a, it's a, you don't get a grade. It's a pass or fail. Either you take the time to do it or you didn't, you know? And so when I found that to be true, it worked, you know, it made it a lot easier. And what better time than COVID? I intuitively knew that when COVID was about to go down, that me having this spiritual toolbox was in a very unique position to help people. There was going to be a lot of people who maintained stability their whole entire life that were going to get spun out and that were going to be kind of like nutty or crazy or not know what to do, because we were all, obviously, we know we were facing something we had never seen before. And I knew that I was in a unique position to be of service and to help. But I also knew that my spiritual life was lacking. And, you know, my buddy Zach George suggested, hey, why don't you join the 6 a.m. meditation that we're doing? You know, we call in, you know, someone will do a reading, we get quiet for 20 minutes. And so I started doing that at the beginning of COVID, and I did it for about, you know, probably 14 months, pretty solid. And I tell you what, COVID, I almost feel kind of bad and for how, I mean, COVID, I loved it. I mean, when I say I love it, I had never been more peaceful and more serene in my life. And it gave me an opportunity to be at home with my kids and watch my 1-year-old really grow up and stuff. And so I was able to be present, because for the longest time, I wasn't present. I was the guy who thought there was not enough time in the day to do shit. And yet I found that not only did I have enough time to get everything done, there was abundance of time to do stuff that I never thought I wanted to do, and to help other people and do all this stuff. And so and you know what, it took you guys to suggest to me to do those things. And you know what, by doing that, I intuitively was able to be of service and to help a lot of people. One area I really fall short on too, and I'm gonna see how I'm doing on time. I'm gonna wrap this up. Is with my wife. You know, I'm always quick to point out, you know, what she's not doing right and how she's not. And you know what? It all boils down to, I'm not asking God for help in that area. I'm not praying for her. I'm not asking God for more patience, tolerance, and love. You know, I'm putting demands on her that to be honest, she might not be capable of meeting. And that's not fair. It's not fair to her, to my kids, it's not fair to me. You know, it's not fair to you guys. Because you know, when I'm wrapped in self and doing that type of shit, you know, I'm not present to other people. So the only way for me to know what's the next right thing and what I need to be doing is to have that conscious contact with God. The only way I've been able to have that is to get quiet, to ask God to intuitively speak to me, to direct me. You know, I know that I'm just as undisciplined as the hours before I came into AA without God's help. I know that. I know that that I'm not that I can still learn from the new guy and from everyone else. And I know when all else fails, you know, to help another alcoholic. You know, there was one time in sobriety, I found myself when I was unhappy in my marriage, my first marriage. I remember I was leaving the casino and I just dreading going home. God. And I remember I'm at a red light. I was like, God, I could just drive into that light pole and end it all. And then I woke up and I was like, dude, you're like 8 years sober. What the are you thinking that type of stuff for? And it was like, you know what? It was because God was like, God wasn't even in the picture. God wasn't even in the picture. And so I'm gonna leave. I think I'm gonna end it right there, and leave it open for other people. This is my first time at this meeting, so I don't know if how I did, if I was supposed to talk about what I talked about, but I feel like my time is done. Again, I'm very, very appreciative to everybody on here. Especially to you, Sam. Thanks for asking me to share. Before I thought that I wasn't worthy of speaking at this meeting, and now I know that I'm an alcoholic. So thanks for asking me to share.
Yeah, man, just let it fly. But so, isn't it funny how when that ego builds back up, how dense that ego can get, where you're just like, no, I don't want to make it right yet. You know what I mean? Like, I get that so many times, and that intuition, I have to be anchored in that prayer and meditation. And the other thing you brought up that was so great, and I wish that everybody could who is newer could hear this. Sometimes me being scared and not taking the initial steps, being so dependent on approval from everybody and making everybody happy, puts me in the shittiest position later. Like, I really should have I really should have had the difficult conversation that was like this big. Now I'm into divorce lawsuit territory, whatever. I've just had that experience before where you're like, man, there's this part of you that goes, man, you're going to have to do this. You need to have this conversation. And the other part of you goes, no, it's okay. It's all right. And it's always about how it'll upset everybody. And the truth is, they don't give a shit, like they'd be like, anyway. So I think would be great so the way we do this is you call on two people. Just look through the screen. Nobody's raised their hand because it's just for you to call on a couple people. And they can either have comments or questions, and then we'll open it up. Good job, Sean.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Zach George, are you on here?
Yo, Zach.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you see me?
Oh, there we go.
I'm incognito. Do you see me?
Yep. See ya.
I love you, Hillis. I, for so long, thought that I would be perfect, that I could be just the best AA, that I could run around and get to a place where I knew and was certain that I had done so many things so correctly that I would become all right with anything. And the truth is, that's not always the way it is. And that's part of it too. If God is everything, God is my fear, God is my worries, God is my thinking that I'm not enough. And it's all clay that can be used to build whatever's coming next. And I just, it's a gift to be able to be on this journey with you and some other folks. And what amazing things have happened during COVID. Who would have ever thought that we would be able to be on screens together all over the world? So thank you so much, buddy.
Exactly. And I also want to hear from Tom. Tom's my sponsor, Tom Ewell, and you already know how I feel about you. But Tom's not only my sponsor and one of my spiritual teachers. He truly is one of my friends, and it's probably one of the longest and best, most successful relationship I've ever had. I mean, and this guy knows everything about me, and I love him more than I can ever show him. So, Tom, I'd love to hear from you.
Paging Tom Ewell. Paging Tom Ewell. Please come to the showroom, Mr. Tom Ewell.
So much for anonymity. Hey guys, Sean, that was a great share, man. It was super honest, and I really appreciated it. I've just been 13 hours driving today, so I'm a little wiped out. I don't have a whole lot to say, but one of the things about you, and you've heard me say this, and I appreciate it, is you will pull my covers. I mean, you'll call me on my shit, and not everybody will do that, and Gary Brown will do it, but I'm my my sponsees, you're the one that will call me the most on my crap, and I really appreciate that, and I know you do it with love, and I think everything between you and your dad is ultimately going to work out the way it ought to, and I love you very much, and appreciate you in my life, and you are a dear friend. So anyway, thank you for sharing. You did a great job. You really did.
Yeah, man. Man, I'm getting ready to start calling Tom on his shit though, I'll tell you that. What about, oh, look, Susan. She's got her hand up. Hey, Susan.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm Susan, an alcoholic. And I just wanted to say what a beautiful, beautiful lead that was. It was so, just so touching and so, really warmed my heart. I have so many of the same issues you do, with similar with your, with your dad as I do with mine. And, for so long, I just kept saying, I'm putting that wall up. I'm putting that wall up because you're not going to hurt me anymore. You're not going to hurt me anymore, until I did that inventory. And I realized that that's not what my morals and values were. And that I've hurt him as much as he's hurt me, because what I've done is I walked out of his life, and I walked out of his life for many years, and I didn't share my children with him. Not that he wanted me to share my children with him, but, I didn't share my children with him. I didn't share myself with him. And it wasn't until 1993, I got sober in 86. It wasn't until 1993, I hadn't talked to him in 5-6 years, when I had got cancer and almost died. And he came to my bed and he said, I never wanted to have this happen again. I want you in my life. And, from there, we've had this tremendous healing. And it hasn't necessarily been the healing that he's the person I want him to be, because he never will be the person I want him to be. But I meet him where he is, and I've learned that I have unconditional, I can have unconditional love and acceptance for this human being, because he is my father. And, I don't want, he's 86 years old, he's getting old, and I don't want to, I don't want him to die without that, without that piece being clear. And a lot of stuff, comes up. He does, he's very, very unemotionally intelligent. He would have no clue what we're talking about here in this meeting, and he never will. And, that's okay. Not everybody can, can or does. And I've just been able to really use my program and use my recovery to, teach him and teach me how to be, how to be a better daughter, and how to be a better, help him to be a better father and to be a better grandfather. And he shows up, he shows up the way he shows up. And that's, that has to be okay. It just has to be okay. And I really, think you're doing a great job with, managing it. And we all do it this a day at a time with the help of our loving creator. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing.
That's great, man. What about Jennifer?
Hey, hi everybody, Jennifer Alcoholic. I'm out here in Santa Fe, and it was really, really good to hear you, Sean. I really appreciated, this journey, and you just sort of reach a place where the stuff that you could do at one time, you just can't do it anymore. It's just like, you can't. And it was just, I kind of heard that journey as you went through it. And I think we all end up having like issues with our parents. And I was going to share, you kind of had me think about an incident that happened in my situation too, where my biological father lived out in California, and I got a call from him, and I lived in Santa Fe, and I got a call and he was dying. He had Lou Gehrig's and he was dying, and he said, you got to come out. You got to come out. So, I had three little tiny children. I had three little girls at that time, and I figured out what to do with them. And I flew out and I saw them, and then I got back to Santa Fe, and I called him a couple of days later, and this like nurse, we'd had to put him in a home because of the Lou Gehrig's. He couldn't move and couldn't feed himself or anything. And so the nurse said, "Oh, you're looking for Mike Zins? Oh, you know what? He died this morning." And I wasn't in the program very long when that happened. And I was really taken aback, and I was upset, and to find out kind of in a sudden way like that. And so I, was at home with my 3 little girls, and it was during dinner time, and I'm getting dinner on the table. I'm thinking they need baths now. And so I called my mom here in Santa Fe, and I said, "Mom, I just talked to the nursing home, and my dad just died. Would you please come over here?" And I'm crying and I'm carrying on. "Would you please come over here and help me give my daughters baths?" And my mom said, "Oh, right. Whoa, let's see. Well, tell you what, I'd love to. I really would like to be there. But I just sat down. And I'm eating my vegetables." And I'm like, I just went to like 10, I'm like, I hate this woman. So, and she wasn't even an alcoholic. I mean, she doesn't need to be an alcoholic to be annoying. And so I hated her. And so I called the woman who was my sponsor at this time, this amazing woman named Lee Schmucker. And I just can't believe how good she was. No one had ever helped me to see that, what might be going on with my parents. And she said, I told her the incident. She said, "Jennifer, you can't expect your mom to come into a home where the death of Mike Zins is being grieved. She's never dealt with her own feelings about it." And it just hit me. And I'd never considered that it didn't have anything to do with me, or that she didn't care about me. It was just more than she could do, because she'd never processed her own feelings about Mike Zins. And for me, it was really powerful to consider that there was, that much more going on. And in my own personal case, I never did come to like my mom. And yet, because of all these family circumstances, I ended up being the person taking care of my mom. And I used to look at her and say, "Mom, you are so lucky I got sober, because I'm going to do a really good job taking care of you." She had dementia. And I used to look at her and say, "Mom, I don't even like you. Do you know that? Like, I don't even like you. Why do I have to be the one taking care of you?" And she would laugh. She would be like, "Oh, you're so pretty." But I took really good care of her. And through that incident, it was years taking care of her and overseeing her care and everything. I came to realize I actually loved her, which kind of pissed me off because I was so devoted to hating her. But I did love her, and I could not handle it if she wasn't okay, even though I have to tell you, I did not like her. So we were just so different, but I took really, really good care of her right till the end. I really showed up for her, and she drove me crazy the whole time. But I was really happy that I didn't have to pretend that I felt stuff I didn't really feel, and I was so sick of that. I was so sick of having to pretend. And so anyway, I've enjoyed Alcoholics Anonymous because it gives me permission to be where I'm actually at, to feel what I'm really feeling. I can even say it to some people. So yeah, kudos to this program. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jennifer.
It's so funny, dude. My mom was texting me this long. I had a problem with scheduling, and she's getting ready to have a big birthday, and not to overshare, but she was texting me this long thing, and she gets kind of worked up sometimes. And I was just about to set her straight on a few of those facts. And as Sean was talking about, just, giving the love, and this is, there was no point in doing that. I said, "Hey, why don't you just take a little break, and we can rediscuss that, circle back on it tomorrow," but I'm 21 years sober, and every now and then the pause and agitated or doubtful comes up. And that's the hardest thing on the planet to do. And I know better. And sometimes I say, I'm just going to just light this motherfucker up, and I'm going to indulge myself. That's what I'm going to do, because he needs it. No pause right now. Pause ain't coming on sometimes. And then it ends up, and I always feel terrible after I do it. The bad thing is when I throw a tomahawk at somebody, I just feel so guilty, so anyway. What about my man Wyatt? Been really digging, listening to some Wyatt lately.
Hey, I'm Wyatt. Hey, thanks, Sam. It's great to see everybody, and everybody's great shares. And Sean, it was just great to hear you. And I don't really have much to add, or whatever, but I was, sometimes when you hear somebody share, you kind of like you reflect on your own experience, and I remember you were talking about your experience with a married woman, and it made me think about I had done that at one time, and I was playing in a band, and the bass player's wife and we sort of liked each other, and she was married, and uh, so we started seeing each other in a sort of secret way and everything. And interestingly enough, also, I think it's okay to share in this meeting. She happened to be a heroin addict, and I was a cocaine guy, and she was a punk rocker, and I was sort of like a hard rock guy, like a Van Halen, a ZZ Top, Aerosmith, and she was like Dead Kennedys and Sex Pistols. And so the upshot of it, we started going out and everything. And I remember we're sitting around. We were drinking and using and all kinds of crazy stuff, and we're sitting around in a circle with her. Her husband was there too. I remember he said, "If anyone goes out with her, I'm blowing their head off." And I was like, oh boy, this is not a good idea. But anyway, so what happened was we ended up actually getting married, and I was thinking that I could save this woman from her heroin addiction, hey, with my cocaine and my Van Halen, to get her off that heroin and Sex Pistols thing. But ultimately, the real thing is that I thought that I loved her so much, that I loved her enough that I could get her off the heroin. Because this is kind of an Al-Anon issue, I think, that my love was so strong for her that I could get her clean, And but anyway, next thing my hair is purple, and I'm listening to the Dead Kennedys and all this kind of stuff, and we ended up being married for 10 years, and it was downhill pretty deep, and but I've seen that this principle carries through to other relationships I've had. The principle of, like, if I love somebody and I care about them enough, somehow my love is going to like change them or something. And it never worked out, it never works out. You can't change people. And then my other thought, well, I could change myself. You know what I mean? This is another thing that I don't believe that we have the power to do this. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't need God to remove our character defects. We could just remove our own character defects, and we'd be fine. And when self-will starts coming into play, oh, I just need to be more patient, more tolerant, more kind, more loving, more patient, more tolerant, more kind. It's great when it's a divinely inspired patience and tolerance, but when it's a self-willed patience and tolerance, the shelf life only goes so long. And at this point, it's kind of like you just gotta trust God, face the music, do the work, and let the chips fall where they may. And I don't know, you can't really say where they're going to fall sometimes. That's not my job. That's God's job. My job is just to work the steps, and his job is to manage my life. And what that's going to look like, I don't really get to say. And I remember you said something about you wanted God to make you perfect and everything. And it reminded me how I thought, well, if I go through these steps and everything, I'm going to have this sort of like experience, and I'll be like Neo from the Matrix, and I'll be able to have these like superpowers and stuff, and and never have a bad day. Anyway, so that hasn't happened yet, but you never know. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks again for such a great share, and thanks for letting me participate a little bit here. And thanks everybody for being here. It's great to see some familiar faces, and make me make some new friends also. Hey, I got a friend out there, I think he goes to the Three Legacies. His name is David H. So if you ever see David H., tell him Wyatt said hello. All right, God bless you all. All right. And hey, if you're out to Los Angeles, come on down and we'll go to a meeting. All right.
Yeah. What about Allison and Patrick? Maybe their screen's blacked out, but I think they're from Seattle. Allison, Patrick, you guys are new to this meeting, right? Let's see if they turn on.
Hi. Yeah, this is Allison.
Hey, Allison, how you doing?
I'm good. Wow, I was not expecting to be called on. Allison, alcoholic. Patrick has actually stepped out of the room. I'm not going to turn my camera on because we are on a belated honeymoon in Mexico and like just not
Nice.
like we're not camera ready. Is all I'm going to say. So, yeah, that was an incredible share, Sean. Thank you so much. I just love it when people in AA like talk about the mistakes that they've made and like the stuff they've learned through those kind of I don't even know how to say. I've done it myself, right? And I was just telling my husband like I would so much rather be like the one who got, you know, something bad happened to me and I can be like, woe is me, self-pity, self-pity. I love that shit, right? I'm like, yeah, like I just love it when someone hurts me and like poor me. But when I'm the one who's done something, you know, and I'm like the one who's made a mistake, which I've done, you know, so been through some similar things myself. Like, I don't even know how to show up in that, you know, and I find myself like, well, I should just get loaded and just fuck me in. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so pathetic when I find myself there. And so I just love, I'm coming up on 8 years and I just love hearing, you know, people with time talk about like staying sober through some hard shit, you know, like I just need that. I make it kind of a point in the way I show up in my recovery and in my my home group and the meetings I go to like be very honest about where I'm at. And I do it with my sponsees as well, you know. God, like there's nothing I love more than smashing that pedestal. Like I've had girls I work with and they're like, "Oh my God, your relationship, it's so perfect." And I'm like, no. Like, let me tell you, you know, like let me tell you what really goes on here. Cause I think it's important to just be super honest, you know, and to say, and I stay clean through that. And I'm able to, you know, show up as a mom through that and as a partner and as an employee and in all those ways in my life. So thank you so much. It was so great. This meeting's awesome. I hadn't been here before, but super grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's funny. I went to a meeting one time with a guy that was really into meditation, and he went to Nepal and got a chance to sit with the Dalai Lama. And there were all these people, and they had a Q&A at the end of it. And this guy's like, "Man, sometimes I just can't get my mind to stop racing. I can't get, you know, and I just can't get focused." And I mean, what do you? And he opens it up, and the Dalai Lama says, "Yeah, I hate it when that happens." So, you know, I love that. Anyway, what about Mary Thayer? Is she on? You still on? She was on for a minute. I don't know if she was on all the way up to the end. There she is. Are you still on right there, or you need some privacy?
Hi.
You had a great share last week. I was re-listening to it again. So good.
Thanks. Well, my name is Mary Thayer. I'm an alcoholic. Sean, it's always great to see you and hear you. And I think I always will thank you for what you did for my daughter. And you know, you talked about being in service and getting into action, and that has a ripple effect too. Not only all the bad we do, but all the good we do. Yeah, I've been good this week. Lots happening. I think lots just happening, and so I've been doing a little extra prayer and meditation and staying in the moment. And I've been here in Santa Fe now for almost a little over a month, and in my home that is no longer my home. It's Heather and Brian's, but they're away. And so it's my home this week. And so I've been just kind of enjoying being where I'm at. I didn't have anything to add. I just loved being here, loved hearing you. Really interesting how we all find out we have values and principles, and after a while, we just can't go against them. You know, I made the mistake of listening, and the road got narrower, and the horizon gets broader. And you know, I did my share of that crap early on. Some of you know, married men were my thing for 7 years in recovery. So, you know, I can't throw any stones anywhere. And by God, I recoiled from a married man just like a hot flame. You know, that I almost went out drinking over. Bev would always say to me, why don't you stop doing the things that hurt you? And, it's an amazing thing when you stop doing the things that hurt you and you pick up this kit of spiritual tools and kind of take a look at what's happening. There's a lot revealed. It really is. I mean, I couldn't find out about anything until I admitted I was alcoholic and stopped drinking, So it's kind of the same way. Can't do anything about my selfishness till I finally admitted to my innermost self that I was selfish, that I was, bad parent. I was this, I was that. So I don't know. It's just a day at a time. I'm still just doing it a day at a time this week. Just a day at a time, doing the drill. Love you guys.
Love you. Thank you. Look at there, Sean. You feel that big old love sandwich? It was all good. It's
Yeah.
funny, this meeting, nobody knows. Everybody I invite to talk, everybody like, well, what's the format again? Like, they are like, what do you do? Like, oh, we read this letter. So you want me to tell my story, or how long do you want me to talk for? And then then they get on here, and then a lot of people get nervous for about a good 10 minutes. It takes a little while to get traction, and then you just let the spirit kind of take over, and you just say what you got to say, man. It's good. You made a great contribution tonight. Anything you like to add to that before we close up?
No, just thanks for having me. One of the things that I constantly are reminding myself is that I think Tom got it from Mary T, is that I'm the fish I got to catch. If I'm disturbed, or if I'm not feeling as good as I'd like to feel, that there's an action for Sean to take. Sometimes that action is to not do anything, but I know that the answer is always, or the answer is God, but I always have to take the action. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Buddy. What a privilege. The way we do this is we end this is we say the Lord's Prayer inwardly to ourselves. We just mute it. And we'll say the Lord's Prayer. If you care to join us, maybe in meditative or contemplative fashion. And then if not, you can think about your day tomorrow. But whatever you want to do, we'll get that started. Amen. Sean, great work, man.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
You.
Thank you, Sean.